So welcome to the Keeter Training Center in the Raleigh Fire Department. My name is Ian Toms. I'm the Assistant Chief of what we refer to as Professional Development. So what you see here is sort of my responsibility. Part of that is we've got special operations groups that work with us, the HAZMAT, the Technical Rescue, and the USAR / Special Operations Committee work with us down here. We've got the Recruit Academy and the hiring process. We also have all of our continuing education, the EMS program, everything is sort of funneled through here. So that's sort of our realm, that's what we take care of. To my left here, this is Division Chief Brian Sherrill. He is sort of my go-to person on the ground here. I actually work in administration downtown, but Brian is actually here on a daily basis, so he works with us here. And then I've got Lieutenant Hubbard over here. He is with our Office of Fire Marshal. He is our Public Safety and Fire Education. This question and answer session is for you to ask us anything that you have in regards to who we are, what we do, what the Academy is like, how long the process takes, all of those things. I'll sort of give you a quick overview of us, but then I sort of will let this go wherever it needs to. When all the question and answers done, we can certainly walk the grounds and show you what we've got, just give you an idea of what the facility looks like, so that you have some, we'll say, a general idea of if you choose to apply and come through and everything works out well, you at least know where you're showing up February 12th of 2024 when we start. Just out of curiosity, does anybody here have previous fire experience? Just a couple of you, a little bit? No, none whatsoever. Okay, and that's not an issue. We typically run what we refer to as 2 academies. We have the long academy, which is you can come in and not know a thing, right? We'll show you how to basically tie your shoes, put your boots on, put your clothes on, all that kind of stuff, and take you through to firefighter certification, HAZMAT level 1 responder certification, and EMT. So that's about a 6-month process. And then we have also what's referred to as the short academy, which you typically come in here with those 3 certifications that I just mentioned. You've had it, but you don't necessarily have any experience associated with those pieces. That's a shorter piece, and what we really do there is just validate the fact that yes, you can do what you say on paper that it says you can do. Okay, so that's the 2 that start there. Both academies typically start at the same time. Everybody gets onboarded for the week and through the city, we'll say the organization, because once you start here, it's not as if you have to graduate the academy to become an employee. The day you start here, so technically next year will be February 12th, you are a city employee and you're afforded all the benefits as being a city employee here. The only difference is you'll run through your academy process, okay, and then you're put on a 6-month probationary period after that. Typically, a regular employee just gets the 6-month probationary period and you move forwards. But here, because the certification piece has to hit, we got to get that first, and then you can move forwards, and then you get that piece there. When you leave the academy, you'll be assigned to a fire station, and you'll have a what's known as a field training officer. One of the officers that will be working with you will just sort of manage, we'll say, your day-to-day activities, and then you'll have what's known as a probationary packet that you will follow for the next 6 months. And each month there'll be sort of like new topics, new information, that kind of stuff that you'll go through, check off, and it just sort of validates the fact that yes, I learned this, I can do it, and I'm still competent at doing it. And that's sort of how that whole process works through there. So that's sort of a general overview of that. But as a department, we have 28 fire stations. We've got 29 engines because engine 13 is housed downtown. We don't have a station 13 because we're superstitious that way. But yeah, so 28 stations, 29 engines, 9 ladders, and 1 heavy rescue unit. In addition to that, we've also got 2 mini pumpers. We operate 3 different types of boat teams. We've got 2 of our squad units at Station 7, at Station 14, have a small, we'll say Zodiac type boat. If you're familiar with that style of boat, they operate those 2 out of there. We have another system at Station 21, but they have, I think, 3 boats out there because we've got 1 for the city, and then we've got, so there's 2 boats as part of that cache out there, and they are part of the what's known as the Urban Search and Rescue Group, and we essentially operate under North Carolina Emergency Management for deployments and that kind of thing. In fact, we just sent them out for a couple of days this past week. When the hurricane passed through, they went down to Elizabethtown in that area and just helped with just getting people basically out of their homes and to, we'll say, to dry land. So that's how the city is made up from a, we'll say, a regular response perspective, and that's what we've got also out there with the USAR piece. We do have 1 heavy rescue unit, which is based out of Station 16. Their job essentially is just to go around the city, and on certain calls they go to obviously all the structure fires and that kind of thing, but they are a group that helps with confined space, trench, high angle, and all that kind of stuff as well. In addition to that piece, we also operate a hazmat team. We cover the city of Raleigh, Wake County, and then also another 10 counties within the state of North Carolina as part of a regional response effort that's also managed under North Carolina Emergency Management. So we cover 10 counties for the hazmat response, and we've got 5 stations which allows us to have 20 people on shift every day that are response technicians. So when you come through here, you'll go what's known as a level 1 responder from a hazmat perspective. Everybody on the team is at minimum a level 2, which is a hazmat technician, okay? And then again, we'll respond to the city, the county, and also the other counties within the state that we're assigned to. So that's sort of a general makeup of who we are. Our ladder company, you saw the one that just left out of here, that's a tiller operated one. So we've got 4 like that. That's the articulated, but it steers in the back. We utilize those, one, because it gives us the height capability that we have on all of our ladders, but it's nice, even though it's a longer piece of equipment, it actually makes a much sharper turn, and we use it well in, we'll say, the tight downtown areas and that kind of thing. So we've got 4 of those, and everything else we have is either a straight stick or what we refer to as a bucket type truck. But all of our aerials, I believe everything is everything 110 foot, or do we have a couple of hundred? Yeah, 100. So that's what everything is set up out there, and of course the engines are, our standard engine group. Most of what we utilize here is Pierce manufactured. Very nice pieces of equipment, we'll say well specified as to what we need, and they work very, very well for us. We may be switching this year to a couple of different brands just because Pierce has taken anywhere from 48 to 50 months to get us equipment, which is a long time because we replace typically 3 to 4 every year. And we can't wait that long. We got to keep them coming through because the mileage that we put on those things. So we'll say that's us as an overview. Is everybody familiar, we'll say, with like the schedule and stuff and how we work? You're all good with that? The 10.
What type of schedule do y'all work?
So we work on, essentially it's 10 days a month. It's a 24-hour shift. It rotates we'll say at 8 a.m. every morning. And it's 10 days and you work 3 out of 9. Meaning that you work, it's a day on, a day off, a day on, a day off, a day on, then it's a 4-day break. And then that rotates through. It's kind of one of those, it's a very predictable calendar. So you can predict, if you stay on the same shift, you can tell what you're going to be working 3 years from now, on that Tuesday or something like that, because it is, like I said, it rotates, but it's predictable. When you work, if you work a Monday, you work 3 Mondays in a row, and then you'll be off for 6 of them. It's like that, and that's just how it rotates around. So, it's a 24-hour shift. It's 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. Typically, most people are showing up we'll say in the 7-7-15 arena, and that's not a requirement. It's sort of the norm. It's kind of a common courtesy. So if we're relieving each other, you're on duty, you got somewhere to go that morning, I try and come in, chat with you, make sure, what happened the day before, swap your gear out. That way, if you need to jump in the shower, get sorted out, the buzzer's not hitting at 7:45, and you're ready to go, but it's not time to go, So that's typically how most people do it. There's sort of an adage around here that if you're on time, you're late. If you're early, you're on time, and if you're on time, you're late. That's sort of how we operate here. But we can't hold you to that. That's not in policy. That's just sort of how we work as a group, Yeah. So that's sort of how our shift schedule works. We do operate 3 shifts as an A, a B, and a C. They all have their own slight personalities. I would say they're a lot more blended now than they used to be. When myself and Chief Cheryl started, B shift was sort of we'll say the oddballs. But things have blended a lot more now. But like I said, everyone's got their own personality. And that's not just the shift, that's also the station and the people that you work with too. But it's a good environment, it's a good place to be. I've been in the fire service for 30 years as of last month. I've been with the city for a little over 27 now. It's been a great career, I've enjoyed it a lot. I know Chief Cheryl's been with us. He came here in '93 and then took a small leave of absence and came back. And has been with us ever since. He's got the same amount of time in as I do. So it's a good place, The city itself, I think, treats us well, treats us fair. It's like everything else. We all have our growing pains. We all got our issues. But all in all, this is not a bad place to be. This area is growing, as we all know. There's tower cranes everywhere. So the nice thing about that is, there's always an influx of people. There's always something new going on. It keeps the community vibrant, and it allows us to get out and do the things that we need to do and stuff. Our call volume it's relatively heavy. It's not New York, Atlanta, or Chicago or something like that, but from a call volume perspective, we are pretty busy. There's a lot of stuff going on. Of course, every station is different. You know, downtown used to be the place to be, you know. It's actually changed. The demographic, as we all know, has changed a lot downtown compared to what it used to be. A lot of our busy areas are sort of pushing out to different areas of the city now. And so, you know, what used to be Station 1 and 3 and 7, they still move. They don't move as much as they used to. And we'll say the call volume or the call type has changed a lot. A majority of what we do just on a regular basis is over 60% of our call volume is medical related. It's medical stuff first, then it will be fire alarms, car wrecks, motor vehicle collisions, that kind of thing. I'm not sure exactly what the percentage is, but it's single digit percentage wise as to putting out structure fires. You know, we get plenty of structure fire dispatches, but to actually show up and actually be a working fire, I would say it's in the single digits. Is that good? I think it's wonderful if you're a citizen. Is it much fun for us? Well, it depends on your perspective, right? But it's like everything else. It's a good place. We've got a lot of safety measures put in by the fire marshal's office, and building construction is so much different now. So the call volume from that regard and from a fire perspective has definitely dropped off and has changed. But it still happens. You know, we're a needed and essential entity as part of the city, so we're out there doing that as well. And the majority of your training here, once you get through the EMT piece and all that kind of stuff, it's all fire related, just because that is, even though we'll say it's a very small percentage of our call volume, it is still a very big piece of our job. It's one of those, it's kind of what we refer to as a low occurrence, high risk type piece. So when it happens, you need to be prepared and be ready for it and that kind of thing. So the academy, like I said, and we'll go through like the long academy. I won't take 6 months to do it, but I'll give you an abridged version of that just to let you know how that all works. But everybody shows up, like I said, first day you'll come in civilian clothes and that kind of thing. It's sort of a paramilitary type environment. You know, we can't take your sleep, we can't take your food, but there's some things that we can do to you. And it's all done just basically just to sort of indoctrinate everybody into the fact that there's a rank structure here, there's a discipline piece, and that we need to move with a sense of urgency. That's really all that's the purpose behind it, right? But the first few days is just standard onboarding as if you're any employee within any organization. Okay, we do PT 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. That's typically set aside for the afternoon. We do that here on a regular basis. All of the clothing that you'll end up wearing is given to you to use. You just got to provide your own underwear and shoes. Other than that, you're good to go. Okay, so everything that you need as part of the job is given to you. Yes, sir. Like for your PT shoes, you'll provide. Those are provided. You get those yourself. But like the work boots and all that kind of stuff, that you're. Oh yeah, I was just saying, you just got to provide your shoes and your underwear. Everything else is given to you. Yeah, so we've talked about it right now. So let's go with the nominal 6 months. We feel as though there's some trimming that we can do to sort of. We're obligated to bring people in, train you to the best of your abilities, and get you out there, because we don't need you here. We need you out there. So what we're looking at right now is to possibly pare that down a little bit, pull a few weeks from here and there, just to get it out as quick as possible. So nominally 6 months. When we first came through, it was 6 months tops. Now it's like we've added this and added this. It's sort of elongated it. Yeah, so it'll be about 6 months. It's probably going to be a few weeks shorter than what we just did with this group that's in right now. Yeah. Is that cool? Okay, yeah. Yeah, so that first week, first few days is just standard onboarding, that kind of thing, okay? You'll do that, and then if for the long academy, you'll switch directly into EMT first, okay? EMT takes 7 weeks. That is, I would say, that's probably the most academically intensive piece of this whole curriculum. That's why we put that on the front end, because we want to make sure that, one, you get it. All right, yeah, so we put that on the front end for 2 reasons. One, it gives us an opportunity for like your turnout gear and all that kind of stuff. Everything is custom made for you, so it takes a while. It's not like we can just walk into Kohl's and buy that off the rack. We've got to have it made. It comes from the manufacturer, so it takes time to get that. We measure you on the front end, but it still takes months to get it in. So it gives a little bit of, we'll say, lead time for that to occur. In addition to that, EMT, because it's critical and it's the most, we'll say, academically intensive, we need to know that you can do it and pass it. It gives you, you get another opportunity to take the state test if you fail the first time. But also, if you just cannot make it, it sort of allows you to we'll say, to part ways with us before you've gotten into all the other stuff too. So that's why it's usually on the front end. So the state tests, no, you will take the city tests and all that kind of stuff, because what we need is we need a class average. And that class average is important to us, and it's important to you obviously too, because with that, you need to maintain a minimum of 70% to maintain your status within the academy. Yeah, so, but if you are state certified, you don't have to take the state test, you'll just take the other ones, okay? And then if you know it, you can help your peers. That's the EMT piece. Like I said, 7 weeks, you'll take that state test, hopefully everything goes well, you pass the practicals, you pass the written, and you move on. And that's when you start getting into, we'll say, the fire curriculum and that kind of stuff. And that starts out obviously with PPE and we'll say your basics, and we walk you through, like I said, we assume that you don't know a thing about this job, and we start you from the beginning and work your way through it, okay? This job, like I said, it's heavy. It's a young person's job. It is heavy, it's sweaty, it's messy, it's dirty, it's not the nicest thing sometimes. But then again, it can be a lot of fun too, you know. So there's definitely good things about it. We wouldn't be here this long if it was totally miserable, right? But the reality of it is, it's kind of one of those jobs. It is different. It's not a regular 8 to 5. You have no idea what you're going to show up to sometimes when the buzzer hits, you know. People call 911 for all kinds of things. So we sort of have to be somewhat prepared for that. But like I said, everything that we do here is done with it's baby steps, right? I'll just take one thing as an example. You've got your PPE on. We're showing you how to be comfortable in your gear. You put your coat, your pants, your helmet, your mask, your SCBA, your self-contained breathing apparatus. All that stuff is on. And we just have you just walk around here, get used to just breathing with that stuff on, because a plastic mask stuck to your face, breathing through a tube. If you're not used to it, it's different. Okay, so people want to get used to that first. Then we start looking at, okay, let's put you in a situation where it's a little bit tighter, a little bit darker. So we take these boxes that you see behind you here, and that's the first step into getting used to working through that gear. And these things here are not designed to trip you up. They're designed to give you comfort in yourself, in your mind, and also in your gear, that you're actually going to be okay. You know, if something goes wrong, like let's say you're in an attic space and something were to collapse on you. Well, in the attic space is all kinds of stuff. You don't know who's got what in their attic space. You've got the spiral wire that's holding your ductwork up. Well, you can get entangled in that. If that happens to me, what do I do? How do I get out of that? How do I manage that situation? So that's where like these little boxes come into play. So we lay them down on the ground. We put you at one end, it's 8 foot long, and we just say, crawl through it. And you just get used to it, right? Well, then we take those and we put them inside the building, because it gets a little bit darker, right? And then you do the same thing. And then we add some more pieces to it. And so every piece is done sequentially so that you get more and more comfort in, like I said, in yourself, in your own mind, and also in the gear and stuff like that. So you have confidence in yourself and your gear. So when things do become real, it does become dark and hot and nasty and all that kind of stuff, that the last thing that's on your mind is, am I okay? So yeah, you're perfectly fine. I've just got to deal with what it is that I'm dealing with. So that's sort of how that works. And that's true with, let's say, really all of the pieces that we go through, with the PPE, with the ladders, with the hose and appliances, everything from a firefighting perspective. We start you out at the bare minimum and just teach you all of that stuff. We have props here that show you how to, if you've never seen a chainsaw, we tell you how a chainsaw is built, how it's made. How to run it, how to cut a hole, through a piece of wood. We start with the basics and work you all the way through. We show you how to force a door. We show you how doors work inside and outside and all that kind of stuff. So again, some people may look at it and go, well, I already got this. Say, yeah, but not everybody does. So that's how that works. And that's true for the whole process all the way through. And then once we've got a lot of the basics and the fundamentals done here, we then start taking you off-site, because we only have limited capabilities, we'll say, of live burn training here. So we take you to other facilities. Fayetteville Tech Community College has a nice burn facility there. We go to Central Carolina down in Sanford. Sandhills facilities got some stuff for us. And then Wake County out near the Sharon Harris nuclear power plant out there, they're back online, and we utilize them as well. So that allows us to do what we refer to as Class A burning, which is, we'll say, your normal combustible materials, wood, paper, straw, that kind of thing. We take you there. That allows things to get hot, to get smoky, it gets kind of nasty, and that's when you get a real feel, without actually being in a true house fire, or a structure fire, I should say, to really learn how you work, how we work, and how the whole we'll say the process flows. How do I pull the nozzle off the engine? How do I get it to the front door? How do I go up the stairs? All that kind of stuff. So that's sort of how that works. So that's a very condensed version of the academy, but that's sort of how that works. And then you turn around one day and you graduate. So
I'm Lieutenant Lemuel Hubbard, and I work out at a fire marshal's office. And for the most part, as it revolves around operations and training, the training facility, Chief Thomas has covered all that information. And all the information that I want to bring on is another aspect of the fire service is code enforcement and public education and investigations. Those are one of the thing that really saves the most lives in our city is making sure that all the businesses and all the housing is built properly and that everything is safe. So we actually have more sprinkler saves, than fire saves, because when a sprinkler goes off, that's going to save someone's life, because that's one fire that protects our guys from going into a dangerous situation, and also it gets you fire protection as quickly as possible. And so we have over 40 individuals who work in the Office of the Fire Marshals. About 24 of those are deputy fire marshals that go out to all the businesses throughout the community to make sure, number one, that they're all code compliant and that they aren't breaking any fire code rules. Sometimes as we go out into communities, we'll find, let's say there's only a limit to how many hazardous materials you're allowed to have in your business. And sometimes we'll find businesses with too many hazardous materials, and that's important for us to be out there and look at these businesses so that our guys don't have a fire at that location, and it's a dangerous situation that they're not ready to handle. Because if your business isn't built for your occupancies, and if you're working outside of your scope, that if you do have a fire, it creates a more dangerous situation. And we're all about preventing fires because, in my opinion, the best fire is a fire that doesn't happen. I'm personally the fire educator for the city of Raleigh, and I help manage all of our operation guys when you go out to schools and we go out to community events. And it's just another aspect of the fire service where if you want to be in the fire department and you didn't necessarily want to be, let's say you get to a point where you want to transition to your career, it's quite possible you can become a deputy fire marshal and you can still serve the fire department. A lot of our deputies are former firefighters who, they've been on the truck probably 10, 15 years and they decided they wanted to do something different. And this is one way you can continue your career in the fire service and still serve, but you're not necessarily on a fire truck. So I started off as a firefighter, but when I became a code enforcement official, I just learned a different aspect of how we serve the community, which is really, we save so many lives that you'll never know about because our efforts is all about preventing those fires.
So everybody that comes through becomes a firefighter first, right? But once you sort of reach that point, you'll spend a few years just online, we'll say, getting your feet wet, getting yourself sorted out and getting settled in the job. But from that point, you can move over to the fire marshal's office and do like the code enforcement, those kinds of things. And there's level 1, 2, and 3 inspectors, and that's something you can go get those certifications and move into that arena and sort of follow that path. And then within us, you can stay, we'll say, just straight firefighter if you wish. I mean, there are no requirements on anybody to promote. If you wish to promote, you can stay, we'll say, I'll refer to it as regular firefighters. You can go, so firefighter, then we've got, like I said, it was when I was a first class firefighter, that's assistant driver, which means if either the officer or the lieutenant who is the driver is off, you will roll into that role and you'll drive the apparatus for the day, okay, or the cycle, whatever that needs to be, okay? So that's the next piece. First class firefighter can move into what's known as senior firefighter. It's the same position, it's just a pay raise. Nothing changes there, you're still an assistant driver. That's the piece that you can move up to there, but then the next rank there will be lieutenant, and the lieutenant is we'll say you are the fixed driver for that piece of apparatus on that equipment all the time. However, if the officer is out, you will act in that role. You always act, we'll say, up. That's that piece. Then you go, so you got firefighter, first class, lieutenant. The next one then will be company officer, which is captain. That means you manage that piece of apparatus on a daily basis. And then from captain, you can go to battalion chief. And right now we have the city split into 5 battalions, 1 through 5. And each battalion chief manages a group of stations. And that's still shift work, so you will manage that piece there. And then from battalion chief, you can go to division chief. And in division chief, there's a couple of different options. There we have 3 division chiefs that are on shift. There's an A, a B, and a C, and they manage the daily operations for everybody, okay? And then we've got 1 in what's referred to as logistics. That's the people that take care of the buildings, securing the apparatus, the equipment, the gear, and all that kind of stuff. So there's 1 over there, and then we have another one that works down here with me. So Chief Cheryl is the division chief for professional development, okay? And then division chief, then the next rank up from there is assistant chief. And we have 5 roles, 4 of which we'll say are assistant chiefs. So there's myself, professional development, there's logistics, there is the office of the fire marshal. The assistant chief actually operates as the city fire marshal, okay? And then we've got the, I can't remember what I said, logistics, professional development, operations, and then operations is one. I forgot that one. He's responsible for everybody that does all the work out there. So I knew I blanked on something. But the 5th one, they're not an assistant chief. That's actually a civilian position, but they are the deputy emergency manager. Okay, because the emergency manager for the city is our fire chief. Okay, so that he right now, our current fire chief, is the emergency manager for the city of Raleigh, and then he has, like I said, the 4 of us report to him plus that 5th position there. So that's if you choose to just stay, we'll say, within the firefighting ranks. Now, the fire marshal piece is available to you. The logistics is a little bit different in that they don't really have a sequential piece. Of course, that's where the mechanics work. There's a division chief that operates with the assistant chief in logistics, but everybody else in that division, I believe, they are all civilian employees in logistics, right? Other than Scott's position and Chief Pools, right? Yeah. So that is an avenue, but we'll say it's smaller. And then again, you've got down here, what we have is, so Chief Cheryl is the division chief here. He reports to me, and we manage all of this every day. But reporting to us, we have positions here. We have the academy coordinator, so that's the person that you will meet in February, and they manage the academy for us. We have the career engagement, the career development coordinator. So his job is to manage, right now, they manage sort of all the continuing education and the promotional processes for everybody here. The hazmat program manager operates out of here. The USAR special operations program is managed out of here. So these are all positions that right now can be filled if you choose to progress into those positions as well. We've got a community engagement coordinator that does our social media piece and we'll say the public information stuff going out. That's a civilian position typically. That's a newer role that we've had, we'll say, in the last, 4 or 5 months. So that's a new piece right now that's going out. We're working with that. And then, of course, I'm trying to think, that's everybody that we've got essentially with us. And we've got Lieutenant Beasley is our logistics person. He just sort of manages this kind of stuff, making sure that our building keeps moving forwards because there's so many things coming through here. So that's our division. And now within the operations piece, I said, so you can move up those ranks just like I'd mentioned. In addition, you can choose, we'll say, a specialty, and that's where you could choose to become a hazmat tech, and you'll still operate as a regular line firefighter and work your way through the ranks, but you also carry that specialty with you, and you can advance, not necessarily, you don't advance in that role, but once you've got that certification, you can apply, get on the team, and then you'll run, we'll say, that dual role piece. So you could be assigned to engine 2, regular line engine, nothing different there, but if a hazmat response is required, you'll come off that truck, you'll get on that truck, and you'll take that. So that's the hazmat piece. And then we have the same thing for swift water operations, technical rescue, urban search and rescue, like structural collapse and those things. And then we also we work in conjunction with 2 different helo operations. We've got the state helo team, and then we also work with the highway patrol locally to do, we'll say, aerial, we'll say, evacuation / water rescue kind of stuff.
There's also one more piece, investigations, which works out of the Office of the Fire Marshal, but they are assigned within operations. So it's like we have Station 1, Engine 1 is our investigations apparatus. So if you want to be a fire investigator, which is a long process, you'll try to get assigned to the investigation team. We work with the police department's arson investigator on all our arson cases. I think you brushed on it, but what's really important about being a firefighter is being an EMT, emergency medical technician. Honestly, that's 70% of your job. We run 70% of our calls are medical calls. So being an EMT is important. So when you come to the academy, you will go through, EMT is a part of the process. So if you already have your EMT, you'll still go through the training. You just want to take the state tests. I think, like you said, just like as a firefighter. So yeah, that's really important. So that's one of our mainstays as firefighters.
So all of our hiring process outside of the agility test is done by third-party companies. Okay, the written test is done by a company that they'll contact you. You'll set up a time. You'll take the written test online and be done. Okay, all we receive is just a list of names and scores on it. Okay, so that company, the psychological exam, and the oral interview, that's all done by third party. We just released earlier this week the contracts for them. Once we get those contracts solidified, which shouldn't take much more than a few days, we can then start setting the actual dates. So we had to get the quotes in from them, pick who we needed, but the dates will be coming. We'll make what our plan is to get everybody in and set and ready for, we'll say, to start prior to the end of this year, so that when we roll into the new year, we've got, we'll say, some room for error in there just to make sure. But that's the plan. February 12th is still the tentative start date. I don't see that changing. We should be fine there. But you'll be looking at probably third, fourth week in October for the written test. Everybody that applies, if we'll say if you applied correctly and everything matches up like it should, everybody gets invited to take the written test. Okay. The written test, and if you pass the written test, we get all those scores, and then everybody that passes the written test is then invited back to do the agility test. And then once the agility test comes through, that's going to be slightly different, and I'll touch on some of that for you if you have questions about that. That this year will be a pass-fail. Okay, we've got minimum standards, which has everybody sort of looked at the agility test and got a feel for that? So last year was competitive. We looked at all of those scores and we've reevaluated, we'll say, the program and the process. And I can't divulge too much information, but we have found that it's really better for us right now going forwards that we just make it, that we set the minimum, and if you pass it, what I'm looking for is, are you fit enough to do this job? I can teach you all of the other stuff, and in 6 months, whatever that time frame is, I can get you fitter. I just need to know, are you this fit right now so I can take you from here to here? Okay, that's sort of how we've looked at it. The test was, I'll catch you both, right? I won't forget you. I don't want your arm going to sleep. Okay, what we're looking for is that the test had to be, I would say, more accessible. Okay, our test was never, we've used CPAT in the past, and other departments use these other, we'll say, more job-oriented ones. The problem with that is you have to provide practice sessions. People need to know, like, if you've never touched a ladder in your life, and I expect you to raise a ladder in 20 seconds, is that necessarily fair? No, because you could be a very smart, good person and really quite physically fit. You've just never touched a ladder because you lived in a condo on the 13th floor downtown, right? And that's just how it is. So the reason we changed the test was to make it more accessible to everybody. And how can I evaluate you just physically? How fit are you, right? So you've been running 1.5 miles, right? Yeah. A lot of people don't like running 1.5 miles. However, it's a good way for me to assess your cardiovascular strength. So what did I do? I actually searched high and low, and I didn't come up with, but we touched on the beep test. We're using the beep test. What do you have to do in the beep test? You got to run between 2 points. So you're still running. I'm still assessing you. It just, some people are like, oh my gosh, it's 1.5 miles. So, but it's the same thing. I'm not a big person. 1.5 miles is nothing, right? I could zip through a majority of this. When I had to pick up that 165-pound dummy and drag the thing 100 feet, well, I don't weigh 165 pounds, right? So it was heavy. But the thing is, I was slow there, but I was quicker on others. So it all sort of balanced out, which is true for a majority of people, Unless you're part of the CrossFit cult, but I'll leave that alone. You're looking at me like, oh, I'm one of those. No, I'm joking, whoever it is. No, but seriously, all jokes aside, we needed a way also to, because logistically it's easier for us if we can just show you, hey, these are the basic things we're looking for. How fit, how strong are you? And all you need is a pair of shorts and running shoes, and you can go do it all yourself on your days off, right? As opposed to having to come in here and practice and that kind of thing. And some people were getting hung up on stuff that's like, gosh, man, I can tell they're fit and they're strong, and they missed it by 2 seconds because they couldn't take the tools, flip them around, and put them in the box properly, you know, or they're not sure how to drive the sled, that kind of thing. Because some things is technique based, and if you don't have an opportunity to practice that, we'll say frequently, you're not as efficient as you should be. And we felt as though we needed to do something that allowed us to give you an opportunity to say, hey, this is how fit I am. So all of the things that we're asking you to do, it's not, Ian didn't come up with it. We researched all over the place. I mean internationally, it's like, what are people doing in our industry to see if people are fit? And what we've come with is we'll say what is new and is shown on that website. So it is the beep test. So for those of you who are not familiar with what's on there, please go take a look at it, because it shows you what it is. It shows you the incorrect and the correct methods of doing it, okay? But it's a beep test, which is basically it's a shuttle run, but you move from cone to cone essentially as it beeps. But the beeps, after so many levels, the time frame becomes shorter, and it becomes shorter, and it becomes shorter. So eventually, you're running a little bit faster each time, and then we've got a set minimum on there. You've got to get to level 5, 6, or what, I can't remember exactly off the top of my head what it is, but you got to get to a certain level. All I'm doing is, can you do a certain amount? Okay. Yeah, and I know, so that there's a big, we could argue this all day. I'll win because I'm the one in charge. But I haven't forgotten you either, okay? But the thing is, like he said, it's like everything else, right? There's some people, like, I can run, right? And I can do a decent amount of pull-ups, but that dummy was heavy, right? And the sandbag thing is, some of those things, it all balances out. I just need to know, are you fit enough across the spectrum to say, can you do this job? Because we all do this job differently, right? We've been on trucks many, many times where, for me, the confined space stuff of moving through a small spot is not a big deal. I don't mind doing it. I'll go do it and all that kind of stuff. When it comes time to taking the big zero refrigerator out of the house, I need some help. That's just how it is. So it's a teamwork thing. So we have to learn, and that's why it's like, I don't need a poster child that looks like, the Marine Corps, poster, right? Yeah, I don't need. Now, if we were all that way, great, but the thing is we're not. So the idea is, like, can you do this job effectively? We have the right tools, we can show you the methods, and are you fit enough? So, yeah, it's later. Seriously, if you look at the website, you can see. You can just YouTube or Google beep test, and you'll see it. But there's one on our site, and it shows you what it is. And but basically, what you're looking at is the cones are set 65 or 64 something feet apart. It's 20 meters, okay? And you'll start on this one line, and you'll hear 3 beeps. At the 3rd beep, you leave, and you go to the next one. You cross the line, it beeps, you go back. It beeps, and you eat 1 foot, you've got to cross the other line, right? Now, if you miss it the first time, as long as you cross it and get back to the other one in time, you're good. If you miss it 2 times, you're out. You're done, okay? But you'll go back and forth to we'll say a certain number of those, and then we'll say that's acceptable, okay?
What's the bare minimum as far as
I think it's like level 5 or something. Is it 5? 5.9. Okay, it's 5. Yeah. And like I said, so that means each level is not 1. Each level is like 7. So level 1 is like 7, and then level 2 is like 8, and I think it goes to 9, and then it just stays there. It goes up to, if you look at the full beep test spectrum, it goes to like level 21 or 22. Elite athletes haven't made it past like 13 or 14. I mean, it's next to impossible to make it all the way through, because it just gets shorter and shorter. Yeah, I made it to like 12.9. I'm joking. No. Yeah, but it's not. But it's doable. And it is a good way to assess your cardiovascular strength without, we'll say, forcing you to run 1.5 miles. But it gives us, you know what, they're fit enough to do it. So the only thing we participate in is we basically manage the logistics of the agility test. We get the scores, and then that's the only piece that we say we have control over. And again, that's one of those, you either did it or you didn't kind of thing. Everything else, like I said, the written test, the interview, and the psychological exam, it's all done out there. So, and you'll get, as you go through, so everybody gets the written. If you pass the written, the agility. If you all pass the agility, you then get to take the interview. Those scores come back. There's a sort of a pass-fail on that, and then we go through there, and then that's when you get the psychological exam too. That's not, no, because it's serious. So it's a beep test, right? It's push-ups, pull-ups, planks, and then we've got basically 2 different types of sandbag carries. One you grab like this, back and forth. The other one you grab 2 bags and do it that. I mean, it's so you can do. Oh, and then there's a step up with a vest on. Yeah, so it is basic stuff. Yeah, hopefully you don't need to practice those things, right? There's basic math, but it's basic math. Yeah. We're not doing no differentiation and integration like that. No, you should be fine. If all the application's good, all of your names will go to them, and they will reach out to you independently. It comes from them directly to you. We have nothing, all that stuff will come from them and go to you. Everybody gets the exact same package across the board. Yeah, all that information, yes. The North Carolina Office of EMS, we follow their guidelines. Whether we're operating or part of our curriculum is all up, it's directed by them. Okay. So we never really know exactly how many until the fire chief and the assistant city manager agree on a number. I would anticipate this year anywhere between 45 and 50 people being hired. Now, I'll say this on camera, don't hold me to that, but that's typically what we're looking at. When we look at the vacancies that we currently have, what we'll be able to fill with this group that's coming out of here, I would anticipate next year we'll probably have 45 or 50 that we'll end up hiring. We'll probably have 60-ish people. What I'm trying to do this coming year is have a few additional people that are already in place, ready to go, we'll say on the wait list, so that, because every once in a while somebody will drop like that. You know, we had a phone call from a few people on Friday that they're not coming to work on Monday. I've got 45 slots that I know will be filled. I'll probably add 10 or 15 to that are already in place, so that if something happens, I can make a phone call and say, you're next, come on in, you're next, come on in, that kind of thing. But I would nominally say 45 to 50 based off the numbers that we're looking at right now in terms of vacancies and what we have available to us. But that decision won't come probably until, I'd like to know now, but they're not going to tell me now. I would say probably the end of January. End of January, yeah. And I wish I could do that sooner, but that's the reality of the, you know, my boss's boss has to say, hire that many. So the written test, the written test and the interview are scored, okay. And we're given a ranked list off of those. We'll take those, obviously average that together, but everybody that's there, if you've passed, and so it's like there's a pass for this, but this is your score, and that's how it gets ranked. Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah. The psychological exam, that's a, we'll take them or we won't kind of thing. That's an interesting component. That's something, you know, police, and we've been doing that for a long time too now. It evaluates you based off, are you as an individual, obviously we'll say of sound mind, but also it is, I won't say skewed, it's directed towards this profession. Because this is a different profession, right? You know, you're away from your family longer than normal. You know, you don't go home every night, and it's not tragic or anything, but it's different. The things that we see are sometimes traumatic, and they're looking at different aspects of your mind and how you understand and how well you know yourself. Are you okay to do this job? You know, because some people really, it is an interest. That's why one of these things we started these information sessions a little bit is because people, they see it on TV and they see it in movies and they think, hey, that's kind of cool, you know, and it really is, but it's not for everybody. It's a different thing, you know, because you see people, they don't call 911 because it's a happy day, right? Something has gone wrong. Sometimes it's little, but sometimes it's not. And for some individuals, you look at that and you go, oh gosh, you know, or there's instances, I know we have chatted about this, you know, personally, I've had no issues in anything, but every once in a while, you know, you run up upon a scene and there's a child that is the same sex and the same age as yours, and sometimes that hits home. It's like, you know what, thank God that's not mine, but things resonate differently, and we all deal with these things differently. There's lots of stuff in place, with peer support and, we'll say psychological pieces. And we have a staff psychologist, so if you're ever having a bad month, you have the ability to go chat with somebody. But the psychological piece is important, so it gives you, and also we'll say them, to tell us that, yeah, this person they're okay, they do fit. And part of it's got nothing to do with the traumatic piece. Sometimes some people just don't get along with others, and you're 24 hours with the same group of people, and if it's a slow day, man, you're bouncing off walls sometimes, and that's an important piece too. No, so what you'll do is you'll spend a couple hours online taking a test, and they're just going to ask you a million different questions, and you'll start realizing the questions are similar, and how do you answer? Because sometimes just answer honestly, because your honest answer is who you are, right? Don't try to outthink the test. Take the test. What they'll do is they evaluate it. It gives you sort of like a profile and score and graph and all that kind of stuff. But then they take that and then they basically call you back at some point. They schedule an appointment and they chat with you about it. And then you're not defending your answers. You're just sort of chatting about, why you chose this one or why you chose that, or how do you feel about this, that kind of thing. And that's how that all comes together. Yeah. You're just not hooked up to anything. No. Yeah. We don't really have a policy that talks about, we would prefer, from here up, that kind of thing. But I don't believe there's anything written that talks.
So nothing like on the classes.
Right, that's about it. Yeah. So no, you're okay. I have 5, you just can't see them. Yes, we have what's known as a grooming policy, and you'll need to comply with that. You're allowed to have a mustache. It can't drop like ½ inch below the, we'll say the corner of your mouth. Obviously, beards are something we can't have, because it's not because we don't like them. It's because you have to have a decent seal on your SCBA face piece. It's got to seal properly, and that's an OSHA thing. That's not an us thing. Your hair length, you can have longer hair. You just have to do something with it as long as it complies with the grooming policy, and all that information will be shared with you. Yeah. I had to I gave it to him. I didn't want it back, but I think one of the recruits from this current class, he came in for a fit test and hadn't shaved. Well, here you go. Start doing it. So yeah. So that's that piece. Yeah. Thank you for attending.